On January 1st, 2026, the sports media landscape witnessed an act of staggering journalistic malpractice disguised as insider analysis. Jordan Robinson, a WNBA analyst with a platform and a microphone, looked into the camera and delivered a prediction about Caitlin Clark's future, so disconnected from reality, so blatantly contradictory to verifiable facts, that it left the basketball world not just confused, but genuinely insulted. Robinson didn't just suggest Clark might skip the upcoming World Cup. She declared it. With the supreme confidence of someone who believes they understand an athlete's mind better than the athlete herself, Robinson painted a picture of a future where Clark, faced with the grueling demands of the WNBA playoffs, would politely decline the invitation to represent Team USA. It was framed as a strategic decision, a calculated move for longevity and rest. There was just one massive, glaring problem with this narrative. Less than 24 hours earlier, Caitlin Clark had sat down on the New Heights podcast and explicitly, passionately, and unequivocally stated the exact opposite. This wasn't a case of reading between the lines. This wasn't a case of vague athlete speak. Clark had laid out a blueprint for her international career that stretched from 2024 all the way to Los Angeles in 2028. She didn't just express interest. She expressed ambition. She didn't talk about the World Cup as an optional side quest. She described it as a critical, necessary stepping stone on her path to Olympic gold. Yet here was a major media voice attempting to override Clark's own words, to construct an alternate reality where Clark's stated dreams were merely placeholders for a cynical business decision she had never once indicated she would make. This moment isn't just about one bad prediction, it is a flashpoint. It exposes a deep systemic rot in how we cover women's sports, specifically how we cover generational talents like Caitlin Clark. It reveals an arrogance in the commentary class that feels comfortable dismissing the agency of female athletes, reframing their clear ambitions as PR talk, and inserting doubt where none exists. Caitlin Clark has spent her entire young career shattering records on the court. Now she finds herself in a new battle, the fight to control her own narrative against a media ecosystem desperate to define her on its own terms. To understand the absurdity of Robinson's prediction, we must first look at the source material she seemingly ignored. When Clark joined Travis and Jason Kelce on New Heights, the conversation wasn't a casual chat about weather. It was a deep dive into her mindset, her goals, and her future. When the topic of international play came up, Clark didn't hesitate. She didn't offer the standard, "we'll see how my body feels" deflection. Instead, she offered a roadmap. The training camp kind of kicks off the next cycle for preparing for the Olympics, Clark explained. Note the phrasing. She sees the training camp not as an isolated event, but as the beginning of a cycle that includes the 2026 World Cup, a cycle that culminates in the 2028 Olympics. This is the language of someone who thinks in 4-year blocks. This is the mindset of an Olympian in training, not a WNBA player looking for an off-season vacation. Clark went further. She directly addressed the very concern Robinson would later use as the foundation for her "she'll skip it" theory, the scheduling conflict. Robinson's entire argument rested on the idea that the WNBA playoffs and the World Cup would force Clark into an impossible choice. How can she play for a championship in Indiana and a gold medal in Germany at the same time? Clark dismantled this straw man with a single sentence. The WNBA season would actually pause for the World Cup, she noted, pointing out that the structure mirrors the Olympic break. The logistical conflict doesn't exist. The league knows it. USA Basketball knows it. Caitlin Clark knows it. The infrastructure is already built to accommodate the very thing Robinson claimed was impossible. But the most telling moment came when Clark shifted from logistics to emotion. "Hopefully I'm on the team for that," she said regarding the 2026 World Cup. Hopefully, that one word carries more weight than hours of punditry. It is the language of humility and hunger. It acknowledges that a roster spot on Team USA isn't a birthright. It's a prize to be earned. It shows respect for the process, respect for the veterans who came before her, and a desperate desire to be part of that lineage. If Clark viewed the World Cup as a burden she might decline, she wouldn't express hope about being selected. She would express caution. She would use words like evaluation or consideration. Instead, she positioned herself as a competitor fighting for a spot. She even contextualized the difficulty of the tournament, noting, "It's almost harder for us to win because there's more teams that play in the World Cup than teams qualify for the Olympics." This isn't someone looking for an excuse to opt out. This is someone analyzing the competitive landscape of a tournament she plans to dominate. So why did Jordan Robinson feel empowered to contradict this clear, passionate declaration? The answer lies in the growing disconnect between modern sports media and the athletes they cover. In the race for engagement, the hot take has replaced reporting. Being first or bold is valued more than being right. Robinson's prediction was an analysis. It was fan fiction presented as news. It relied on a tired trope often applied to superstar athletes, that they are essentially corporations in jerseys making every decision based on brand management and load management. The narrative goes like this. Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA. Her priority is the Indiana Fever. The World Cup doesn't pay as much, doesn't get as much domestic TV time, and risks injury. Therefore, the smart business move is to skip it. This cynical worldview projects the values of a sports agent onto a 22-year-old competitor. It assumes that Clark is motivated primarily by risk mitigation. But everything we have seen from Caitlin Clark, from the logo threes at Iowa to the relentless pace of her rookie season, screams the opposite. She is motivated by challenge. She didn't take the easy road in college. She didn't shrink from the physicality of the WNBA. She seeks out the biggest stages because that is where she feels most alive. To suggest she would look at the World Cup, a tournament featuring the best players on earth, and say, pass, is a fundamental misreading of her competitive DNA. Moreover, the timing of Robinson's comments adds a layer of disrespect that is hard to ignore. Clark's podcast appearance dropped on December 31st. Robinson's prediction aired on January 1st. There is no charitable interpretation here. Either Robinson didn't bother to listen to the most relevant interview of the week involving the player she was discussing, a failure of basic preparation, or she heard it and decided her own speculation was more valid than the athlete's word. This is a form of media gaslighting. I know you said you want this, but let me tell you what you really want. It strips the athlete of their voice. It infantilizes them, suggesting they don't understand the big picture that the analyst sees so clearly. Imagine for a moment this scenario playing out in the NBA. Imagine Anthony Edwards or Tyrese Halliburton going on a podcast, outlining their 4-year plan to play for Team USA, expressing excitement about the World Cup, and explaining how the schedule works. Would an analyst go on TV the next day and predict they would skip it? Unlikely. When male athletes express a desire to compete, it is generally taken at face value. Their ambition is celebrated. Their words are treated as bond. But female athletes, despite decades of fighting for every inch of respect, are still treated with a unique brand of skepticism. Their commitments are viewed as conditional. Their bodies are viewed as fragile. Their priorities are constantly questioned. Clark is battling a narrative that tries to box her in. On one side, she faces critics who say she's just hype. On the other, she faces supporters who want to wrap her in bubble wrap and manage her career like a stock portfolio. Both sides miss the point. Caitlin Clark isn't a stock. She's a hooper. And hoopers want to hoop. While Robinson was busy constructing imaginary conflicts, the people who actually run USA basketball were doing the work. Sue Bird, a 4-time Olympic gold medalist and now the managing director of the women's national team program, isn't interested in hot takes. She's interested in gold medals. Bird was in Durham, North Carolina at the December training camp. She watched Clark up close. She saw the passing angles, the gravity she pulls on defense, the way she commands an offense. Bird knows better than anyone what international competition demands. It isn't just about scoring, it's about adapting adaptability. It's about mental toughness. It's about sacrificing personal stats for the collective good of a super team. When Clark attended that camp, she wasn't there for a photo op. She was there to work. She was there to integrate herself into the USA basketball system, to learn the terminology, to build chemistry with players like Aja Wilson and Brianna Stewart. That participation is a far stronger indicator of her future than any pundit's guess. You don't fly to Durham in December to run drills if you plan on skipping the tournament in September. USA basketball operates on a meritocracy. They want the best 12 players on the planet. If Caitlin Clark is one of those 12, and every metric suggests she is, they will invite her. And based on everything she has done and said, she will accept. The relationship between a player and the national team is symbiotic. The program gives the player a legacy. The player gives the program dominance. By predicting an opt-out, Robinson wasn't just predicting a scheduling conflict, she was predicting a rupture in that relationship. She was suggesting Clark would break the unwritten contract of elite basketball. When your country calls, you answer. Why does this matter? Why spend thousands of words dissecting one bad prediction? Because these narratives have consequences. When a false story takes root, it forces the athlete into a defensive crouch. Instead of focusing on her jump shot, Clark now has to field questions about her commitment. She has to reassure fans that she meant what she said. She has to waste energy debunking a controversy that was manufactured out of thin air. It also confuses the fan base. The casual fan, hearing Robinson's confident tone, might assume there is real insider info behind it. They might start to believe that the WNBA schedule doesn't pause, or that Clark is secretly prioritizing rest. This erodes trust. It creates a cynical distance between the player and the public. Furthermore, it disrespects the WNBA itself. By framing the World Cup as a distraction from the real work of the WNBA playoffs, Robinson diminishes the importance of international play. The global game is vital to the growth of women's basketball. The World Cup is a showcase. Having the biggest star in the sport participate isn't just good for Team USA, it's good for the Fever, it's good for the league, and it's good for the game. Suggesting that Clark would view it as a burden reinforces a parochial, small-minded view of the sport. It ignores the history of legends like Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, who played year-round, won WNBA titles, and stacked Olympic gold without complaining about rest. Caitlin Clark is playing the long game. She told us as much. My goal is to be on the Olympic team for 2028, she said. The Olympics, Los Angeles. She understands that 2028 is the mountaintop, a home Olympics, the chance to win gold on American soil. It is the kind of career-defining moment that cements a player in the pantheon of immortals. But she also understands that you don't just show up in 2028, you build towards it. The 2026 World Cup is the dress rehearsal. It is the forge where the 2028 team will be tempered. Skipping 2026 would be a strategic disaster. It would mean missing crucial developmental time with the national team core. It would mean entering the Olympic cycle with less experience, less chemistry, and less equity with the coaching staff. Clark is too smart for that. Her basketball IQ is off the charts, and that intelligence extends to her career management. She knows that the path to LA runs through Berlin. Robinson's prediction assumed Clark would trade long-term legacy for short-term comfort. It was a bet against Clark's ambition. And if there is one rule in basketball right now, it is this: never bet against Caitlin Clark's ambition. In the end, this episode serves as a stark reminder. We are watching a generational talent unfold in real time. We are witnessing a career that has the potential to reshape the geometry of women's basketball, but we are also watching a media apparatus struggle to keep up. We are watching analysts fall back on lazy tropes and manufactured drama because the reality, a driven, focused, relentless competitor simply doing the work, isn't spicy enough for the algorithm. Jordan Robinson tried to write a plot twist. She tried to inject conflict into a story of commitment. But Caitlin Clark isn't a character in someone else's script. She is the author. She has told us her plot. She wants the playoffs. She wants the World Cup. She wants the Olympics. She wants it all. And until she gives us a reason to doubt her, until she fails to show up, which she has never done, we owe her the basic respect of listening. The 2026 World Cup is coming. The roster will be announced. And when Caitlin Clark's name is on it, remember this moment. Remember the doubt. Remember the insider predictions. And then watch her play. Watch her wear the jersey. Watch her chase the gold, because that is what she said she would do. And Caitlin Clark keeps her promises. The noise will continue. The hot takes will fly. But the truth is found on the court and in the clear, unshakable voice of the woman standing at center court, ready to take on the world.